One woman had 3 seconds to decide whether to save 2 strangers, or save her own life. Night, Jericho. A knock at a door set low in the city wall. Not the front gate. The gate has been shut and barred at sundown every night since the news from across the Jordan started arriving. A private door, the kind that gets knocked on after dark by men who don't want to be seen. And the woman who opens it takes one look and knows. Not customers. Wrong bearing, wrong eyes, wrong everything. 2 strangers, dusty from the fords, trying to look casual and failing, in a city where every stranger has been reported to the palace within the hour for weeks. She knows what they are before they speak. Israelites, spies, the advance guard of the army camped across the river, and behind them, somewhere in the dark streets, word is already moving toward the king. 3 seconds. Turn them in, and she's a loyal citizen with a reward coming. Hide them, and she's a traitor. And treason in a walled city under siege watch has exactly 1 penalty. She opens the door wider. Come in. Fastest bet in the Bible. Now let's find out who's making it. Quick word if you're new here. This series walks the genealogy at the start of Matthew's Gospel, the list of names most people skip. 1 guest at a time. 3 threads run through every episode. Grace, power, and providence. And something changes with this one. The last 4 episodes were a catalogue of the family's disasters. A patriarch who handed his wife to 2 foreign kings. A con man in a goat costume. A man who sold his own brother and then left a widow to rot. And a woman who beat him, but who had to walk to her own execution to do it. This episode has none of that. The woman at that door is simply, straightforwardly, good at this. She reads a situation correctly in 3 seconds, while an entire city gets it wrong, and then executes, and then wins. It's the first uncomplicated pleasure in the whole story. Enjoy it. Her name is Rahab, and the text introduces her with a job title. Zona, a prostitute. No euphemism, no softening. Later tradition tried out innkeeper, which is sweet and which the New Testament flatly declines to adopt. Hebrews and James both call her exactly what Joshua calls her. She runs a house in the wall of Jericho, and she is, in every sense that matters, a woman on the edge. Physically, her home is built into the city's outer skin. Half in, half out, a window opening onto the drop. Socially, hers is the profession every city uses, and no city honors. Legally, she exists at the tolerance of men who would not greet her in daylight. Now notice what that marginal position has made her. Informed. A house like Rahab's is where a city's secrets come to relax. Travelers, traders, soldiers, officials. Men talk, in a place like hers, the way they talk nowhere else. And a clever woman on the edge of everything hears everything. Remember Tamar, studying Judah for years from inside her enforced invisibility? Rahab is running the urban version. A 1-woman intelligence service that nobody notices because nobody counts her. And what she has heard, what all Jericho has heard from every trembling caravan, is this. A people came up out of Egypt. Their God dried up the sea in front of them. They have already destroyed 2 kings east of the Jordan, utterly. And they are camped right now at Shittim, across the river, facing us. Jericho's response has been the response of doomed regimes everywhere. Shut the gates, double the watch. Project confidence. Rahab's response has been to draw a conclusion. The knock, the door, the 3 seconds. Come in. And immediately, the plan. Because Rahab, like Tamar before her, turns out to have thought faster than everybody else in the story. The spies are barely inside before she's moving them up the outside stair, to the flat roof, where the season's flax harvest lies drying in long stalks. Lie down. And she lays the flax over them, which is a hiding place with a wonderful domestic genius to it. Nobody ransacks drying flax without spoiling it. And no man of the king's guard is going to pore through a woman's linen work on a hunch. She's back downstairs, composed, by the time the king's messengers hammer on the door. And they do hammer, promptly, with a royal order. Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. The whole city's machinery has converged on her doorstep within the hour. This is the moment. Whatever she says next, she's committed. And what she says next is a lie. And it is a beauty, layered, plausible, and constructed, like all the best lies, almost entirely out of true-sounding pieces. Yes, the men came to me, concede what they already know. But I did not know where they had come from. A working woman doesn't interrogate clients. Check. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. Timing chosen precisely, because it's unverifiable and urgent at the same time. I don't know which way they went, and then, go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. Go after them quickly. She doesn't just deflect the hunt. She accelerates it, points it at the fords, and fires it out of her own front door. And the king's men go, pounding off down the Jordan Road in the dark, chasing nobody, while the gate slams shut behind them and seals the actual spies safely inside the walls. Under the flax, one floor above the woman who just outplayed the palace with 6 sentences. The narrator of Joshua offers no comment on the ethics of that lie. Generations of theologians have. I'll simply note that the wrestling has been done almost entirely by people who have never had soldiers at their door. Scripture's own commentary comes later, and it consists of putting her in 2 halls of fame. We'll get there. Then she goes up to the roof before the spies sleep, and delivers the speech, and everything freezes, because this is the hinge, not just of the chapter, but arguably of the whole conquest narrative. And it comes from the last mouth in Canaan anybody expected. I know that the Lord has given you this land. Notice the tense, not might give, has given. Done deal. She then tells them their own story, better than they have been telling it themselves. The sea dried up before them. Sihon and Og, the 2 kings across the Jordan, destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. And then the sentence that should be framed, for the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Stop on that. A Canaanite prostitute, standing on a roof in a condemned city, has just uttered one of the fullest confessions of faith in the entire Old Testament. Heaven above and earth below. Not your God is strong. Not your God frightens us. A statement of universal, exclusive sovereignty that anticipates the creeds. And nobody preached to her. No prophet ever visited Jericho. She assembled this theology herself, out of rumors, the same rumors everyone in the city heard. All Jericho received identical data. Sea, kings, camp at Shittim. All Jericho concluded, shut the gates tighter. Rahab alone ran the evidence to its end and concluded, this God is God, and the gates are irrelevant. Here's a pattern this series will keep meeting, so let's name it now. The outsider sees it first. The insiders of Jericho have walls, a king, a garrison, and a professional interest in believing their system will hold. Rahab has no stake in it. It has never once been on her side, and people with no stake in the system are free to read the evidence straight. Faith, this chapter quietly suggests, is sometimes less about receiving special light than about lacking the vested interests that keep everyone else squinting. The woman the city wouldn't count was the only one in it doing the maths. And then, having stated her theology, she names her price. Because Rahab's faith is not a mood. It is a negotiation. And I mean that as the highest compliment. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. The word she uses is hesed, covenant kindness, loyal love, one of the great freighted words of the Hebrew Bible, God's own word for his faithfulness. And she wields it like a professional. Spare my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them. Not, spare me, my family. First thing she asks for. Hold that. It's where this chapter's warmth is stored, and we'll come back for it. The spies agree. Our lives for your lives. And the deal is struck on the roof, over the flax, between 2 hunted men and the woman who owns their survival. Now the escape, executed with the same brisk competence as everything else she does. Her house is on the wall. The window opens over the outside drop. She lets them down by a rope through the window. 1 verse, and Jericho's defenses are defeated by a length of cord and a woman's arm, before a single trumpet sounds, She even handles the exfiltration route. Go to the hills, hide 3 days until the pursuers return. Then be on your way. She is better at their job than they are. The spies, to their credit, seem to know it. But before they drop, the terms are finalized. And here is the detail the whole tradition has never stopped looking at. Tie the scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. Gather your whole family inside. Anyone in the house lives. Anyone outside it, we cannot answer for. And she said, agreed. Let it be as you say. And the text adds, with quiet emphasis, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. Immediately, not on invasion eve, not when the trumpet started. She hung the sign the moment the promise existed. And if you've been with us since the last episode, something just flickered. The last time we saw scarlet thread, a midwife was tying it to a tiny wrist at the birth of Perez, marking a child of the promise at the very door of life. Now scarlet marks a door again, a Canaanite woman's window, the one opening in Jericho's wall through which mercy will come. 2 women, 2 scandals, 2 threads of red, each tied at the exact point where a life crosses from death's side of the line to grace's side. I told you the image would return, and this is where it retires. Christian tradition has run this thread, sometimes rather breathlessly, all the way to another hill and another rescue. Precisely because it's so well worn, the series uses it exactly twice and stops. Tamar's wrist, Rahab's window. If you spot the color again in the long story ahead, you have my blessing to feel the tug of it yourself. And then, and this is the part that gets skimmed, and shouldn't be, Rahab waits, because tying the cord was the easy part. Leaving it there was the hard part. Count the days she lives with a treason sign hanging in her window. 3 days, while the pursuers scour the fords, however long the spies report and the mustering take. Then the Jordan crossing, the river stops for Israel. Another impossible story arriving over the wall. Then, of all things, a pause, while the entire invading army is circumcised and keeps Passover, which must rank among the least expected military maneuvers in history. And then 6 days of the strangest siege ever conducted. The whole army of Israel, marching silently around the city, once a day, trumpets and the ark, and not one word, while Jericho watches from the ramparts in mounting, superstitious dread. And through all of it, every single one of those days, a scarlet cord hangs in a window in the wall, in full view of the battlements. She could take it down at any moment. Nobody would ever know. She could go back to being a citizen of Jericho and take her chances with everybody else. She doesn't, and she keeps her entire extended family gathered in one house underneath it, on a promise from 2 strangers she met for one night. Any guard asking the wrong question, any relative losing nerve and slipping out, any change of heart across the river, and she has bet everything and lost it. So faith in this chapter is not the speech on the roof. Faith is the cord staying in the window, day after silent, trumpet-haunted day. On the 7th day, 7 circuits, and the shout, and the wall of Jericho falls flat. The wall. Sit with the terrifying geometry of that for a second. Rahab's house is in the wall. The very structure that collapses is the structure she lives inside. And her section holds. The text doesn't linger on the mechanics, only on the outcome, delivered with a kind of exhale. Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute, with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. Everyone she named on the roof, alive. The whole negotiated list, father, mother, brothers, sisters, all who belonged to them, walked out of the one standing gap in a fallen wall under a scarlet cord, because their disreputable daughter saw the truth first and drove the hardest bargain of her life on their behalf. And what Rahab wins is not what heist protagonists usually win. She asked for survival. She received belonging. The text says she lived among the Israelites, not in a camp for tolerated foreigners, not on probation, among, and nobody laundered her. That's the detail to sit with. Scripture had 1,000 years to quietly rebrand her as an innkeeper. Instead, every single mention, Joshua, Matthew, Hebrews, James, keeps the word, because the word is the point. grace did not receive a reformed and respectable woman. It received Rahab, entire, history included, and then the transformation came, as it came for Judah, as it will come for others, from inside the belonging, not as its entry fee. The guest list, once again, refuses to check references. And weigh the ledger while you're here. One side, a fortified city, a king, a garrison, the whole apparatus of organized power. Other side, one woman, one lie, one length of cord. The apparatus loses every exchange, outwitted at her door, outrun at the fords, outlasted through the siege, and finally flattened around her, while her marked window stands. It's Tamar's lesson scaled up to geopolitics. The system's blind spot is always where the future gets in. And then the genealogies quietly detonate their surprise. Rahab married into Israel, into the tribe of Judah, into the very line we've been following. A man named Salmon, of the house of Perez. And Rahab and Salmon had a son, and they named him Boaz. If that name means nothing to you yet, it will by the end of the next episode, because Boaz is about to become the first unambiguously good man in this entire story. A man whose kindness to a destitute foreign widow is so instinctive, so far beyond any legal obligation, that it stands out from every male character before him like sunrise. And now you know where he learned it. Boaz grew up in the house of a foreign woman who had been destitute in every way that counts, received into Israel by grace when the rules said otherwise, and who presumably never let her son forget what it feels like to arrive at the threshing floor of the world, with nothing but your nerve and your need. When Boaz spreads his protection over a Moabite widow gleaning in his field, he is doing for Ruth exactly what Israel did for his mother. Kindness, it turns out, has a genealogy too. And notice the quiet question underneath the whole plot. Why her house? Of all the doors in Jericho, the spies come to the one belonging to the single person in the city who has already concluded that their God is God. Providence in this chapter saves one family from a collapsing wall, and is thereby, invisibly, saving the family, the one this whole series is tracing. The hidden hand was holding the cord, and Matthew prints all of it. His 5th verse, Salmon the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Second woman in 5 verses, and the escalation is deliberate. Tamar was scandal inside the family. Rahab is scandal from outside the walls, a foreigner from the condemned city itself, and a prostitute, named as such in every text that mentions her. If Tamar's inclusion bent the genre, Rahab's breaks it over its knee. There is no honor genealogy logic under which you volunteer this name, which means Matthew isn't doing honor genealogy. He's doing theology. His gospel will end with go and make disciples of all nations. His genealogy shows the nations already inside, and scripture files her twice more, for good measure. Hebrews chapter 11 seats her in the gallery of the faithful. Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, Rahab, the prostitute, the only Canaanite, one of only 2 women named. Her old job title left defiantly in place next to her honor. And James, wanting an example of faith proved by action, reaches past almost the entire Old Testament and picks 2 case studies. Abraham and Rahab, the father of the faith and the woman in the wall. The genre said her name should never be written down. It got written into everything. One question, from the window in the wall. Rahab's greatness was not that she received better information than her neighbors. She received identical information. It's that she acted on it, totally, while it still cost everything, and then held that position through every silent, terrifying day of the wait. So, what visible decision in your own life shows what you really believe? Because Rahab's question isn't whether you've heard the rumors. Most of us have. It's whether there's a scarlet cord in your window, something visible, costly, and unretractable. Faith you can't see from the battlements, this chapter suggests, may not yet be faith. It may just be an opinion about the weather. Comments if you're willing. Next time, a famine and a road out of Bethlehem. A man takes his wife and 2 sons east into Moab, enemy country more or less. The sons marry local girls, and then, one by one in a foreign land, all 3 men die. which leaves 3 widows standing on a road. One of them turns back. The other one, quietly, stubbornly, in a speech people still read at weddings, without knowing what it cost, refuses to take the hint. The gentlest chapter in the story is next. You've earned it. If you've enjoyed Rahab's story, you've only met one member of an extraordinary family. Every episode in this series comes from my book, The Guest List Nobody Would Have Chosen, which explores the remarkable people hidden inside Matthew's genealogy. People whose stories are full of grace, failure, courage, and surprising hope. If you'd like to spend more time with Abraham, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, David, Bathsheba, and the rest of this unforgettable family, you'll find a link to the book in the description below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time as we meet our next unexpected guest.